Tonight, a lot of questions are finally being answered. ABC News has tracked down the men and women at the very center of this case, including a juror who says, and I quote, "I did not say she was innocent. I just said there was not enough evidence." And you'll hear more from that juror in a moment. But first, the man who led the charge to free Casey Anthony, Jose Baez, the rookie defense attorney. Earlier today, he spoke exclusively to ABC's Barbara Walters.
The prosecutor has said that as he heard the not guilty, he said, wow, wow, wow. What did you say?
Thank God.
You said there were no winners in this case, and you wanted justice for Casey and for Kaylee. Was this also justice for Kaylee?
Absolutely.
How?
Because I think Kaylee would never have wanted her mother to suffer this way. And Kaylee certainly would never have wanted her mother to die. And I don't think we could have dishonored Kaylee's memory with a false conviction. And that's what would have happened if she were found guilty of her murder.
You know, there is so much antagonism towards her. You won the case, but you know, there's a lot of anger out there. And one of the main reasons was that she was described as, quote, happy-go-lucky. She went out with friends. She even got a tattoo that talked about a beautiful life. So the feeling is that even though she was acquitted, that she was very callous. How could she go out dancing and partying?
I think what we do in our society is we judge people pretty harshly. And we judge them as if we know how we would react if we were in their shoes. But the fact is, we're not in their shoes, and we haven't lived the life they've lived. So I think when people start judging people that way, I think it's a bit unfair. People grieve in many different ways, and people respond to trauma in various ways.
And the defendant approached.
Casey is going to be free, if not sooner than later. Are you worried about her safety?
I am. And I'm afraid for her, and I don't think it's fair.
How do you see Casey's future?
I think Casey could have been anything she wanted in this world. And I think there are still plenty of things that Casey can do in life. And I think Casey can be a productive member of society.
And Barbara is here now. Kind of stunning to hear him say that Kaylee would not have wanted her mother to suffer. But Barbara, how soon does he think that
these body scanners? They simply have metal detectors, which would be even less likely to pick up the devices, particularly if they were made of plastic.
Thanks, Nancy. We have breaking news tonight. CBS News has learned that the United States has killed a top Al-Qaeda commander. Alias Kashmiri was believed to be a key planner of the hotel massacre in Mumbai, India, and was suspected of plotting attacks against U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Two sources tell us that Kashmiri was killed last month in Pakistan by a U.S. drone. One official said to us today, quote, "We know we got him this time." At the White House today, the president said he will begin sending condolence letters to families of troops who commit suicide in a war zone. Troops who die in combat have always received this honor, but for generations, suicide victims have not been acknowledged by the president. The White House has been reviewing this policy, but Mr. Obama took action 1 week after Elaine Quijano first reported this story on our broadcast. Elaine?
Well, Scott, the president says he made the change to the condolence letter policy to remove the stigma associated with one of the unseen wounds of war, suicide.
In a written statement, the president said this issue is emotional, painful, and complicated. But these Americans served our nation bravely. They didn't die because they were weak, and the fact that they didn't get the help they needed must change. The group Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, which has been advocating for more mental health programs for veterans, called the president's action long overdue.
While we think this is a positive first step, I think a lot more needs to be done, that the White House really needs to redouble its resolve to addressing the suicide epidemic head on.
Chancey was not trying to seek honor, nor was he being a coward.
If anyone can be credited with changing the policy, it's Greg and Janet Kiesling. They have been fighting for the change since 2009. That's the year their son, 25-year-old Army Specialist Chance Kiesling, killed himself on his second tour in Iraq. They say acknowledgement from the president gives them some comfort.
He was a good soldier. And so I think that's the part that I want to know that the country appreciates, that he fought, he did everything he was asked to do.
But there are still military families who will not be receiving condolence letters. The policy change does not include suicides or training accidents here in the United States.
Thanks, Elaine. President Obama will be meeting at the White House tomorrow with top congressional leaders, still trying to break that impasse on raising the national borrowing limit as the D-Day for default grows ever closer. Here's Chief White House correspondent Chip Reed.
Taking questions from the Twitter social network, President Obama lashed out at Republicans for refusing to compromise on taxes as part of a deal on the national debt.
The debt ceiling should not be something that is used as a gun against the heads of the American people to extract tax breaks for corporate jet owners.
But in fact, there are signs Republicans may be moving toward compromise by closing some tax loopholes. Today, House Republican leader Eric Cantor told reporters, if the president wants to talk loopholes, we'll be glad to talk loopholes. He added that eliminating corporate tax breaks should be coupled with offsetting tax cuts somewhere else. Democratic sources familiar with the negotiations say President Obama called all four top congressional leaders yesterday and made the case for doing a debt deal even bigger than the $2 trillion in spending cuts they've been focused on. Those sources say the deal the president now favors would be as close as possible to $4 trillion. It would require Republicans to raise taxes and cut defense spending, and Democrats would have to agree to deep cuts in Medicare and Medicaid. But the sources say the president believes it would get enough votes to pass because supporters could argue that it puts the nation on a sound financial footing. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell today said he hasn't given up hope.
The president said he prefers a big package. We all do. And I hope that there'll be some kind of breakthrough tomorrow.
Scott, the president said today if they don't get a deal in the next couple of weeks, interest rates could soar, the nation's credit could be downgraded, and the economy could spiral into a second recession or worse.
Chip, thank you. By far, the most awe-inspiring pictures we've seen this week came from Phoenix, Arizona, where a cloud of dust seemed to swallow up the entire city last evening. Flights were grounded. Drivers couldn't see more than a few feet in front of their cars. Folks who live in Phoenix are calling it the mother of all dust storms. We've been hit by a lot of violent weather this year, and we asked Ben Tracy to look into why.
This is a legitimate haboob, or a dust storm.
The giant wall of dust that swept into Phoenix was bigger than most, a mile high and packing at least 60-mile-per-hour winds.
We thought it was a cloud, and then we got into it, and it was just black.
The dust began to gather near Tucson, where it hasn't rained in 3 months. By the time it hit Phoenix, it dwarfed the city, larger than anything seen in 100 years. The dust storm is the latest freak weather phenomenon in a string of strange weather events. Drought in the Southwest has fueled wildfires in 3 states, but in the western mountains, there was so much moisture this winter, the snow is still there, a lingering snowpack that hasn't been seen for 15 years. That snow and record rains here in California were caused in large part by La Nina, cooler water temperatures in the Pacific that change weather patterns. That helped end California's 3-year drought. But La Nina was followed this spring by a stronger than normal jet stream pattern, creating winds that collided with warm water from the Gulf of Mexico, causing severe storms across the southern U.S. That led to all those tornadoes and record flooding. Meteorologist Jan Null studies weather patterns.
Anytime the atmosphere stays in the same place for an extended period of time, then you're usually going to start seeing some unusual weather events.
And the weather may seem worse than normal because many of the storms have hit heavily populated areas. Chicago buried in record snowfall, Tennessee flooded, large parts of Joplin, Missouri destroyed.
those amounts of damage in urban areas, it not only bumps up the dollar figure, but also the number of fatalities, and then that makes it something that is noteworthy.
In fact, in an average year, weather-related damage would total about $6 billion at this point. In 2011, we have already hit $32 billion, the most expensive since they began tracking it 30 years ago. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Los Angeles.
We were talking in the newsroom about the weather today, and we noticed this from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So far this year, there have been 8 weather disasters in the U.S., blizzards, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, that did at least $1 billion damage each, and hurricane season is just beginning. As the space shuttle program comes to an end, America's astronauts are looking at a whole new world. It's opening day for baseball's Roger Clemens, on trial for perjury with an all-star roster of potential witnesses. And we'll hear from a man who describes Whitey Bulger as a mentor and a rat when the CBS Evening News continues.
COPD makes it